Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar today, Beyond World Youth Day, What's Now and What's Next. My name is Jonathan Sitko, Assistant Director of Programs for the Catholic Apostolate Center, and this webinar is hosted by the Catholic Apostolate Center and the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, Secretary of Laity, Marriage, Family Life, and Youth. This webinar is also presented. I'll be your host this afternoon, and this is also and I would like to just take a moment and welcome our guest presenter or guest facilitator, Paul Jarzembowski, Assistant Director of Youth and Young Adult Ministries and Lay Ecclesial Ministries, as he begins to talk to us today about World Youth Day and recapping World Youth Day and sort of what is happening and what is happening next. So I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar and welcome Paul Jarzembowski.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. It's good to be with you again. Many of you have been part of the journey in the past at webinars and events since we've been on this journey before World Youth Day, and it's good to see many of you back again. And for those of you who are new to the journey, I want to welcome you. One of the nice things about this process is that it's a continual voyage, and that no matter where you come in the process, we're always glad to walk alongside you. So to begin, I would like to begin with prayer, and I've taken the prayer from World Youth Day that we used, and I kind of adapted it a little bit for the past tense. So, Jonathan, I think I need to. Oh, yep, there you go. So if you follow along, it's slightly adapted from the, as I said, from the World Youth Day prayer for the United States, and in a sense of reflection. So if you would just, in your own way, join me in prayer in wherever you're at. So let's just call upon God in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. God our Father, thank you for always being with us on our pilgrim journey of faith. Thank you for the grace and courage to keep walking forward in faith and hope on the road there and back again. Lord Jesus, thank you for opening our eyes to see your face in all those we encountered, for opening our ears to hear your voice in those who have been often ignored, and for opening our hearts so that we could be faithful disciples of mercy and truth. Holy Spirit, thank you for transforming and empowering us to give of ourselves to the poor, to welcome the lost, to forgive those who hurt us, and to comfort those who suffer and are marginalized. We thank you for blessing the pilgrims who traveled on mission from the United States of America to Krakow in Poland, land of divine mercy, to join the Universal Church for World Youth Day. We thank you, too, for blessing pilgrims who celebrated stateside, united in faith and joy. And like the disciples who journeyed up the mountain to witness the Transfiguration, we thank you for this experience, which was a remarkable encounter that strengthened us for our ongoing work in this world. Through the intercession of Mary, the Immaculate Conception, patroness of our nation, may we always be worthy witnesses of our faith, humble representatives of our country, and inspired missionaries bringing peace, hope, and mercy into our communities. Amen. So again, I just am glad to have you with us. The first thing I'd like to do is go through a little bit of some recap and updates, just to kind of see where we've been so far. So first, really briefly, I'd like to just do a quick review as to where we have been this past year. It's just a little under 5 months since World Youth Day, and so as we kind of are looking back, and this is the time of year that a lot of people, and maybe you, are looking back at your past year. What did you do? And right in the middle of that year, for many of you, you experienced a World Youth Day, whether that was internationally or stateside. So let me first share a little bit about our review of what happened in Krakow. There were over 2 million people who gathered from around the world in Krakow this summer, from all different continents, gathering together. 2 million, some estimates of maybe perhaps up to 2.5 million at the closing Mass. So that was a very exciting opportunity. From the United States, we sent 40,000 pilgrims, which was one of our largest delegations to a World Youth Day. It was the largest delegation outside of North America, which is very exciting. So 40,000 came from all the different states in the country and in some of our territories as well. Specifically looking at who the age range broke down in, just to give you a snapshot of who we're talking about, this is the kind of an overview of who came from the United States. As you can see, the majority age range were those young adults between 19 and 25, 61%. And if we add this to the 26 to 35-year-olds, that's 73%, almost 3/4 of all pilgrims from the United States to Krakow were in their young adult years. 22% were in their teenage years. This is a significant change from past practice, from the United States at least. So that was a new development that we've been growing. We saw a little bit of that with Rio, and it really came true in Krakow, where the majority audience were those in their young adult years, which, as many of you know, is kind of the target age range for World Youth Day. Actually, that 19 to 25 is really the core of who World Youth Day was intended for. And so it's obviously open to those 16 to 35, but we certainly see that the majority is in that kind of that center part. So that's a very new change for us from the United States, and I just wanted to share that with you. 85 U.S. bishops attended. Again, this is our largest delegation of bishops to a World Youth Day outside of North America. And they enjoyed the experience of being with their pilgrims. 13 of them were named catechist bishops, and perhaps some of you may have gone to catechesis or experienced catechesis with one of those 13 U.S. bishops. There were, in total, I do believe there were about 30 English-speaking catechists and about 200 overall catechists. So 13 of those were from the United States. And as you see in the picture, Bishop Frank Caggiano of Bridgeport was one of them. Bishop Caggiano is also the World Youth Day liaison for the Bishops' Conference. So very good experience there. We had a couple of opportunities for U.S. pilgrims to gather. There was the U.S. gathering on Wednesday at the Taron Center, which was the Mercy Center, hosted by the Knights of Columbus. The USA gathering was hosted by the U.S. Bishops' Conference there. And so we had an opportunity to just celebrate our common culture as American pilgrims. On Thursday of that week, we gathered at the Dominican Church in Krakow for a prayer service with Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati, led by Archbishop Hebda from St. Paul, Minneapolis, pictured there. So we had a very nice crowd for that experience as well. And then our third gathering as U.S. pilgrims took place on the Saturday of the weekend, on the 30th, where we had Mass also at the Taron Arena with Archbishop Kurtz as the presider, and from Louisville, and Bishop Caggiano as the homilist. So wonderful opportunities for us to gather, and it was really great to pack that arena for these gatherings. And of course, what World Youth Day would not be a World Youth Day without the presence of the Holy Father, and Pope Francis certainly had a profound presence at this experience. He was very much part of the festivities. Many people love the fact that he arrived to the field for the welcome ceremony in one of the cable cars that go around Krakow, and he was there with several disabled young people who were able to ride along with him to that opening ceremony. So the Pope's presence was certainly felt throughout the week, and he was himself very moved by the encounter. And I'm sure that so many people around the United States Krakow had a great impact on them. So whatever perhaps happened there, we certainly hope that in the local church there was an impact as well. But the Holy Father at the closing Mass told us all to not just let World Youth Day be something that we keep at this one city. World Youth Day in Krakow is not meant to stay in Krakow, but rather to be a catalyst for the rest of our life. And that's really hopefully what it has meant for you and for your pilgrims. Some other updates for you. Since World Youth Day, the Vatican office that coordinates World Youth Day has changed. It went from a pontifical council to a dicastery. And for those who are into church structures and hierarchies, it basically meant that the department that coordinates this got a promotion. A dicastery is a much larger entity, and so it includes issues related to laity, family, marriage, life, and then youth and young adults as well. So, in fact, we are very thrilled that one of our own bishops was named the cardinal who is in charge of the dicastery. Cardinal Kevin Farrell, formerly of the Diocese of Dallas, was named the president of that dicastery. So he is going to be overseeing all the things that are related to those areas, including the next World Youth Day. So that dicastery is developed, and we're excited. And one of the first things that dicastery had worked on was the themes with the Holy Father of the next World Youth Days. So those have been announced. And some people have asked the question whether or not this is a new thing that the Pope is announcing World Youth Day themes for every year. And this is not. There has been 30-some World Youth Days since it began in the 1980s. And this is, every year there's a theme. What's distinct about this 3-year cycle is that which was the same for the last 3-year cycle, is that the readings that make up the themes are connected. They're from Mary's Magnificat, which the first year in 2017 we're reflecting on, the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is his name. That's Luke 1:49. And then in 2018, we're going to reflect on, do not be afraid, Mary, for the Lord has found favor with you. And then in 2019, the year of the International World Youth Day, Luke 1:38, which is, I am the servant of the Lord, may it be done to me according to your word. And so those are the themes, and you know, recognize that, especially in Advent, those are very appropriate themes. And they have a connection as well to this next point, which is the Synod in 2018 on young people, the faith, and vocational discernment. Now, at first glance, those 3 themes of World Youth Day, the connection you might say is, well, they're Mary's prayer. And they do certainly have a Marian element to them. But the other element to them that most people have on the surface have realized is that if you look from 2017 to 2019, it's the discernment journey. The first one, the Mighty One has done great things for me, looks at the past. And then the 2018 theme, do not be afraid, the Lord has found favor with you, is about the present moment, about the reality of right now. And then in 2019, may it be done to me according to your word, is a future pointed theme. So those 3 themes really go through the vocational discernment journey of a young person. And so the World Youth Day themes and the Synod theme are very much connected. So as we look forward to the upcoming, this upcoming cycle, we're going to see them dance together. And then 2019, some people may be wondering if we have any new news to share. At this point, we know the themes. We know they're starting to look at the locations of where things are happening. Nothing has been officially announced. The dates are still to be announced as well. We're hoping within the next few weeks that the dates will be revealed. We do know that there has been some tension between the dates in what is South America or Central America's dry season, which is in our winter. So that's one possibility, that maybe in January or February. And then there's the traditional dates, which is in Panama's very wet season, which would be in July and August. And so there's been some conversation still whether or not, and the Holy Father is ultimately making that decision. He has received feedback from different bishops' conferences, from the Panamanian bishops, and the Holy Father will be reflecting and discerning himself on what the best date would be for the next World Youth Day. But nothing has been decided. If anyone tells you at this point that World Youth Day will definitely be in a certain month or whatever, know that that is still speculation, and that until the Holy Father kind of makes that decision, even though others may have advised him to make one decision or another, it's his to make, and we expect that hopefully in the next few weeks. I want to pause here for a moment because I know that some of you may have some additional questions, and wanted to offer you a moment to ask perhaps about Panama. And again, the stateside is something we're still going to be promoting for 2019, especially if it isn't held in the traditional time frame that we're used to. The stateside gatherings will be even more critical to the involvement of young people around our country. So, so I just want to pause and see if anyone has any questions on this, or if you have any particular questions that you hope we might be able to address over the next couple of minutes on this webinar. So I'm going to pause for a moment and let Jonathan, if there are any questions that have come through on the chat, I'm happy to address them and respond accordingly.
One question that someone has is, will the USCCB provide any resources for parish groups for World Youth Day follow-up?
Yes, actually. Well, we actually already have provided some resources, and at the end of this webinar, I'll be pointing people towards some of those resources.
And the other question that Kyle has asked is, will the USCCB send official word about dates? I guess, what would be the best channel to find out the official dates for Panama 2019?
As soon as possible, up to the minute. If you follow our Twitter account, and that's twitter.com WYD USA, we will let people know as soon as it is official from the Holy Father. We will let people know. So follow the Twitter account. That's where you're going to find the most accurate and up-to-date news. We'll then post it on our website later. But if you're just waiting for that moment, definitely be sure to follow us at WYD USA on Twitter, and you'll know as soon as we know. We will announce that very quickly when we know.
Paul, who asked the question about parish resources for parishes about World Youth Day follow-up, asked, as sort of a follow-up, was, have any stateside World Youth Days been run successfully, and can we share some best practices?
Yeah.
And so I open that question as well.
Yeah, and actually I'll bounce it back to some people to see if indeed, if you're on the webinar and you did have a successful experience, I invite you to share that. I do know that I have heard a couple of places around the country that received more than 1,000 people. In Washington, D.C., they had about 1,300 at their Krakow in the Capitol. I know San Antonio had quite a number as well. And we're still getting in some numbers from others. So if you're on the webinar and you had one, feel free to share. Some events were a single day. Most were, I think, a single day, but there were a few that were overnight. I know in Chicago, I think they did an overnight option. So it really depended. And some were specifically focused on young adults, some on youth, some combined the two, some a particular demographic within that. So, so I know that there were a number of best practices.
We have a question. Oh. We have a question from Gerald. Any resources or suggestions for best practices for preparation and engagement before the international year?
Yeah. Yes. Very similar to what we did for preparation and follow-up for this World Youth Day. We'll be doing the same thing for the next one. We'll be getting those out a little sooner than we did last year, so hopefully we'll be able to get that process going. But yes, the USCCB will be providing resources and ideas for that. I also saw a question before about the Synod. It was kind of tongue-in-cheek, but I do want to respond. Whether or not you'll be invited to the Synod. Technically, the Synod is for the bishops. It's a Synod of bishops, but in order that the bishops are properly prepared, we are anticipating that the Vatican will be equipping the bishops with questionnaires and suggestions on how to best get responses so that they can be informed when they're at the Synod. So the Synod is a Synod of bishops. There may be a few experts from around the world, but it's for the bishops. But in the local diocese, in whatever local context, the bishops will be having probably listening sessions with leaders and with young people to make sure that they are equipped for the work of the Synod. The USCCB will probably send a few representatives to that Synod. So those representatives will take the information that's received in the next couple of months from all of you, and they'll be taking that to be able to provide to the Synod. So even though you won't be there in person, your opinion will be there through the questions that will be asked over the coming years. And then, you know, it doesn't prevent anyone from doing their own Synod on a local level if they feel, and I know that some dioceses had a Synod or are planning to do a Synod, so that doesn't prevent you from doing that, which may be another route by which you may want to bring up some of those questions.
Father Paul had a quick question of if there was going to be a highlight DVD coming out for this past World Youth Day.
That would be from the international organizers. I would still keep in touch with Krakow2016.com, which is the official international site, and they might have in their store a recap video. The Bishops' Conference does not have plans at this point to do such a thing, but there may be, the official organizers may have done it. There may be news stations, I think maybe perhaps Polish media may have done something, so keep a lookout for that. I don't know specifically. If we hear of anything, I'll be sure to post that on the Twitter account.
And that seems to be it for everybody with their questions.
Great. Well, I'll move on. And again, if people have questions throughout, we'll keep the chat going. So if you have anything, please do be sure to comment, and we'll address those as we go forward. So, as we know, one of the key elements about going forward is making World Youth Day more than a moment. We use the image of the Transfiguration to help people prepare. And this particular image of the Transfiguration was something that we were really drawn to. If you notice, it has Jesus and the disciples not just at the moment of the transfigured glory, but also the going up and the coming down from the mountain. And what this image really shows is that all three parts of the journey are sacred to the experience of transfiguration, which is ultimately what we do. So much of the time before World Youth Day was spent really preparing people for it, but now it's time to really focus in on the coming down the mountain so that it is a complete experience, so that it's not just going up, but that there is coming down. And really, all leaders are really called to tend to both sides. So the fact that you're on this call to talk about the Beyond World Youth Day is a testament to you that you are very conscious of both elements of this. And any of the leaders that you work with or other leaders in ministry, be sure to also encourage them to think also about what comes afterwards, because in any moment of sacrament, any moment of spirituality, the the before and the after. In the RCIA project, we know it as mystagogia, the unpacking of the sacrament afterwards. And that's essentially what we're called to do now, is to help our young people unpack what they have experienced. They've had a highlight moment. It may have not been one of the 7 sacraments in the initiation of it, but it is a sacramental moment. And of course, there were many sacraments celebrated there, the Eucharist, reconciliation at that time. So now it's helping them unpack it and figure out what comes next. The Apostolic Nuncio to the United States had this to say to the bishops just a few weeks ago when he addressed all the bishops of the United States. He said, when we think of massive spiritual events on a grand scale like World Youth Day, the majority of young people who participate, even if their practice of the faith varies, generally show a joy for living. Their concerns center on peace, gentleness, cooperation, and openness. I'm just going to pause there before moving on to what else he said, to just giving this sense that the Archbishop, who's basically the Pope's ambassador to the United States, said this, really called out World Youth Day as a moment when they realize that not everyone goes there for the same reasons. And I think that many of you have experienced that in your World Youth Days, that young people go, some of them go because they want a deep spiritual experience, and some of them go because they met a girl or a guy who's going to World Youth Day and they want to join them. We know that it goes across the board and that people's reasons for jumping on that plane to go to Poland this summer varied. But the one thing that we see from all of them is a joy for living, and that just to reflect on that experience. But then he goes on to say this. Archbishop says their attitudes invite us, and by the there, he's talking about the pilgrims to World Youth Day. Their attitudes invite us to have faith and confidence not only in them, but also in their peers. It will be they, meaning the World Youth Day pilgrims, who carry out a true, silent, spiritual revolution. So what he's calling our bishops to do is to encourage all of us to know that the World Youth Day pilgrims are, in a way, a highlight for us. They testify to all people of their generation, even those who weren't there, even those who may not actually be that active in the Catholic faith. Their attitude invites us to have faith and confidence in those people as well, and it's they who are going to carry out this revolution. So the young people have a role of going forth. So I just love that the Archbishop made a comment on that and really spoke to the bishops this year about the opportunity to go forward. So I want to really want to cover 3 things over the next few minutes. Remember, first of all, you are still their guide. You are still the person that, even though you may say, well, you know, we went on this trip, it's over, it's done, I paid off the last to the travel company, or, you know, we settled up everything, everyone's all paid up, everyone's done, everyone safely came home. And that's great. You did you ended the logistical part of it, but you are still their guide. So if you led a group, if you led a team of groups, you still journey with them. So my invitation, inspired by the themes of the next 3 World Youth Days, is to do 3 things. Look back with your pilgrims, look around with your pilgrims, and look ahead with your pilgrims. And really, this is very practical strategies of what you can do beyond World Youth Day with this. So the first thing I want to do is look back. Again, reflecting on the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is his name. Luke 1:49. So one of the things that I would encourage you to do is, with your pilgrims, register with the National Alumni Network. Now you can do that on our website, wydusa.org, and there's a link there for alumni. So if anyone attended World Youth Day, pass on that link to them. Encourage them. We've got hundreds of people that have already registered for this alumni network, but we know that thousands went. So we encourage you to pass that on so that they can be part of a national community. The Bishops' Conference is gathering this network in the hopes that it can continue to encourage people in their faith journey. So we'll do our part as well. I know that many of you are doing great work, but I encourage you to also connect them to the national network so that we can help share in that. And that's wydusa.org. and that you can find on that page. There's a section for alumni or past pilgrims. Click on the registration link for that. Another thing you can certainly do with them is reunions, retreats, and small groups. A chance for them to reflect on their stories. Reflecting on this theme, the Mighty One has done great things for me. What are the great things that the Mighty One, that the Lord, has done in their lives because of World Youth Day or at World Youth Day? Where were those moments where they encountered God? And then reflect also in retreats and in small groups on mercy. The theme of World Youth Day 2016 was mercy. Did we fully unpack it at World Youth Day? Is there still more for us to do? Did we quite get the message? Were there particular catechesis or were there particular addresses from the Holy Father about mercy that we can kind of go deeper onto? Have you ever thought of maybe gathering your alumni together, taking perhaps the Pope's address at the Vigil, at the Stations of the Cross? That's probably a great thing to do during Lent. But even at the final Mass, his homily, reflect on that and unpack it a little bit. What does he mean by this? Where is it pointing us? What is it about mercy that the Holy Father is asking us to do? And spend time reflecting on that. I mean, in a way, it's a very easy opportunity for small group sharing. You just need that some of the documents. And later in this webinar, we'll share with you where you can actually get quick access to a number of those documents. But using that as the foundation. And if you're looking for a retreat, we actually designed a retreat. The Bishops' Conference designed a retreat for what to do afterwards. So there is actually a retreat plan for what to do now. And so we'll share the link so you can get access to those retreats. You can even see them as actually I think I already see that Jonathan's already putting those links in there, so that's great. Another thing to do is to connect international pilgrims with stateside pilgrims and the community. A number of the communities that were there, you may have had people who went over to Krakow, and then you may have had people who stayed back home to have a World Youth Day stateside experience. Consider perhaps getting them together and sharing their stories together. Again, we have in the guidebooks, we have some ideas for how to do that, some discussion questions and things like that. So you may want to look to that as a way to get them together, because it'd be very fascinating to see what did a stateside pilgrim experience and how was it different than how the Krakow pilgrim experienced it. They may have watched the same, you saw it on a Jumbotron, they saw it on maybe their computer or a television monitor at their church. How was that experience different? How was it the same? And what did it say to each one? I also put in here, and the community, because are there ways to connect the international pilgrims and the stateside pilgrims with their community, their families, people in the community who may have watched it on EWTN or Salt and Light or through one of the websites that were carrying some of the live streaming of events. How about connecting with those people? How did World Youth Day, how did that impact the life of a 50, 60, or 70-year-old in the community? How about the pastor of the community? How did it, if he stayed back home, how did it impact him? It'd be wonderful to have a dialogue, because that's one of the things, is we don't want to get our international pilgrims or our stateside pilgrims thinking that they had the best possible experience and that no one else had an experience quite like them. It's true, the experience was distinct, but everyone had an opportunity to gather and to understand and go on this journey. So sharing what that was would be a wonderful way to look back. We encourage you to mentor pilgrims in sharing their stories. Many of them may not know how to share, how to witness to the story, especially in a way that's, that doesn't seem off-putting. Like I said, some people, when they share their story, they share it in a way that's like, oh, you should have been there. We had an awesome time. Sucks to be you that you weren't there. That may be the way that some people share their stories. As spiritual mentors, you can help them share in a way that's inviting and welcoming to others, and doesn't have this sense of one-upsmanship. And then another way that you can help them look back is pray that they witnessed God's presence. Pray for them. I think sometimes in our busyness, we forget that one of the things that that you can do is simply pray for young people and their journey, that they did have that moment, or that God still is trying to speak to them and unpack it. In the Ignatian tradition, there is a prayer called the Examen. And the Examine, it helps young people look back in gratitude at the experiences and find out where God was speaking to them. You may have had a pilgrim who went on World Youth Day. They came back and they said, it's fine. It was cool. The Pope was awesome. The Polish food was fantastic. And then they went about their normal day. Maybe somebody came back and they had a great experience and they found God speaking to them while they were there. But maybe 5 months later, going through an Ignatian Examine with them might help them unpack other ways that God was speaking to them. Or to the person who didn't have a profound experience there, perhaps 5 months, 6 months later, reflecting on the experience, they might see something that they didn't see when they were closer. So pray for them, pray with them, and teach them to pray about those experiences. So this is ways to look back on the moment. Now, looking around, that's the other thing that we can do, the second part of this. And again, this is inspired by the second phase of our next 3-year theme, which is, be not afraid, the Lord has found favor with you. Another way to mentor pilgrims is to mentor them in spiritual awareness. Sometimes they just simply need to have their eyes opened up to be able to look at the world around them in new ways, and mentor them with different prayer styles. The Examine I mentioned, but Lectio Divina, Eucharistic adoration. There are various centering prayers that are done. Various contemplative communities have prayers that allow people to just wake up a little bit to the spirituality of the present moment. Sometimes the present moment can feel very rough and you're going through a lot of pain or struggle, and so sometimes you're kind of blinded to that spiritualness. And so hopefully you can mentor them in just being more aware of the world around them. As St. Ignatius would say, to find God in all things, right in front of them. We also invite you to invite pilgrims to become evangelizers of those who are disconnected and hurting. And I say both disconnected and hurting. It might be tempting to just be an evangelizer of somebody who's not currently active in their faith. But I also evangelize to those who are struggling. One of the lessons of this World Youth Day has been the value of mercy, and mercy not just as forgiveness, but mercy as in charity and in justice. So who are those peers? Who are those people around them? Once they're more aware of their surroundings, the spirituality and the godliness that's around them, they'll also discover that many of their peers are struggling. We know that youth and young adults today are perhaps going through more issues related to depression, anxiety. They're going through, especially with young adults, many economic issues, more so than in previous generations. There are more young adults under the poverty line today than in previous generations. So there's a lot of hurt that's going on, both physical, spiritual, emotional hurt. And pilgrims have an opportunity to be the face of mercy to those people. So inviting pilgrims to evangelize their peers, not in the sense of proselytize, but in the sense of loving mercy to those who are hurting. And when they see them being accompanied by those who are active in their faith, they too will want to join and follow in that lead. And then perhaps consider some sort of training for pilgrims. Train them in merciful evangelization. I kind of look at 3 ways that they can easily do this. Their families and friends. Are there family members or friends that may be disconnected or may be hurting that they can engage with? World Youth Day might give them some tools. And again, reflecting on what was will help them for what is in terms of what's around them, who they need to evangelize with. Helping young people be present at moments of return. As many of you know, many youth and young adults reconnect with church at certain moments. If you go to Mass this particular Christmas, you'll see a lot more youth and young adults that normally aren't there. Ash Wednesday coming up next year, and then Easter, and also other moments such as baptisms and weddings and funerals. Those are moments where a lot of youth and young adults who may not be active in their faith or who may be hurting do come by to the church. And if pilgrims who were on fire with World Youth Day are there to be present for them, again, not just advertising for, hey, come to church more often, But to be truly present, to be merciful at those moments of return would be a wonderful sign of how your young people can put into action what the Holy Father was inviting them to do at those special moments of return. And then there's intense training in terms of going into the mission field, into their schools, their universities, their workplaces, their communities. Is there some way that we can train our young people to get out and really share the gospel and witness in ways that are not threatening, but incredibly inviting to the message of Christ that they learned at World Youth Day that they can then share with others? So evangelization training is certainly part of ways to look around. And then finally, looking ahead. Again, inspired by the statement in Luke 1:38, I am a servant of the Lord. May it be done to me according to your word. I think the first element of that is reminding pilgrims that they can be servant leaders. I think that's a wonderful phraseology. It's a leader who serves others, a missionary disciple, but also a servant leader. You are a servant of the Lord. And I think that as we look forward, seeing your leadership at the service of those to whom they're called to lead and comfort is a great thing. So calling pilgrims to be leaders. Those who went on pilgrimage really have a great foundation for church leadership. And that's one of the crises in the church that we're facing right now is it really, when they say a vocations crisis, it's a leadership crisis. How many people are stepping into the sense of being a Catholic leader, both in the lay apostolate, in the church, and there are many other ways in which they can be leaders inspired by it. And I think that we can urge our young people who went to World Youth Day to be the next leaders in our church. Many of them probably already are church leaders, but continuing to foster that in those who may just think, I just came as a participant. And I think that's the next level. Pope Francis at this World Youth Day called everyone not to be couch potatoes. And I think that's one of the ways not to be a couch potato is to take an active leadership role in society, in the church, in the lay apostolate, so that you can then go out and be a leader to others. Again, formation and surrender and humility, focusing in on that theme. One of the downsides that people we've seen in past World Youth Days is, again, this one-upsmanship. I went to this awesome event, you did not, and I'm sorry for that. But rather to form them in a sense of surrender, humility to what comes next for them, and that they don't think of themselves as any better than anyone else, but that they accompany others and they ultimately surrender to the Lord's will. Introduce pilgrims to vocations. Are there particular vocations? The intentional single life, marriage, priesthood, and consecrated life. Introducing them in ways, and there are a variety of ways, and that could probably be the subject of a whole other webinar, and we probably will, leading up to the next synod, is how to introduce young people to the concept of vocations. What is it that God has for your life? Where are you going next? So one way to do this is connecting pilgrims with active adults and ministries in the local community. Let them see people who are active in their vocation in the church, whether as a lay person, as a married person, as a priest, or as a religious. Help them see how that works. So sometimes just visually seeing them will be a very helpful thing. And engage pilgrims in the mission of the church. Encourage them to get involved in witness and evangelization work, justice and charity work, worship, ministry, lay leadership. Certainly ways to, all your pilgrims who went to World Youth Day should be involved in something at their local community, in their parish, their diocese, their apostolate, wherever they may be. Certainly encouraging them to be involved already. We have found one of the things that we have found is that those who have disconnected from those who have not disconnected from the faith. We talk a lot about those who have disconnected. So we've also looked at what are some trends of things that people who are active in their faith. And one of those things that keeps people active in their faith for years to come is involvement and leadership in ministry. If we can get them more involved, not just as a participant, not just as a couch potato Catholic, but as an engaged Catholic, a leader in the Catholic faith, then we certainly will see them more active in their young adult years, in their adult years, well throughout their life. So please, whoever was your pilgrim, if challenge them to step into a leadership role. Encourage creativity and willingness. Part of the leadership means being, first of all, willing to step up, but also that creativity. Young people, one of the things that Archbishop Pierre and many others, Pope John Paul II and Pope Francis, have said about young people is the one thing they bring to the church is this notion of creativity. They bring a sense of, we haven't done it this way before, why don't we try this? Sadly, Pope Francis pointed this out in one of his addresses, was he sees too many people who are kind of like the Walking Dead. They're young people, but they're already bored and tired and fatigued. And we live in a very intense world. I can understand how that happens. But encourage creativity, creative thinking in how to do evangelization, how to engage one's, your Catholic faith in the world. Be creative, be entrepreneurial. So encourage that. And often young people have it within them to be that more readily than even those of us who are aging one year after the other. I know I have to always remind myself to feed the creative juices and the entrepreneurial juices that make me an active Catholic. I get tired after a while. It's comfortable to do the things I've always been doing. So encourage that in the young people. Another thing is accompanying their family and friends. I think sometimes we forget that when a young person is on fire with their faith, some of the people they leave in the dust are their own family and friends. Sometimes their mothers or fathers are like, they were just going to church. Now all of a sudden they're going to every retreat. Accompany them in that process. Tend to the parents, tend to the families, tend to their friends. Heck, if they went to World Youth Day but their spouse didn't, tend to their spouse. Accompany not just the pilgrims, but those who are around the pilgrims. They need our support too. And they will need the support, especially as the young person gets all excited about, if they really go headlong into engaging in the mission of the church, they may come home to mom and dad or to their families and say, guess what I'm doing now? I'm going to be a lay missionary or something like that. You need to accompany their friends and their family members with them on that journey so as not to, again, leave them in the dust. And then stay in touch, reconnect, pray for them. If you are in youth ministry and you took teens to World Youth Day, stay in touch with them in their young adult years. Don't let go. I obviously let go in terms of like that, cutting the cord kind of stuff, but stay in touch. Always be that reminder for them of this moment and reminder that the church cares, because you don't know where the next step will be. There may not be someone who is at that next level of their ministry life. They may go to a parish where there's no active young adult ministry or a campus ministry. So you might be the face of the church. So please stay in touch. If you're a young adult ministry person and you took young adults to World Youth Day, still keep in touch. Even if they move away from your area, still keep in touch with them. That your presence, your ability to reconnect will be very important to them as they continue on that journey, and pray for them. I keep in touch with the people. I went to Denver in 1993, and I'm very grateful for those who journey with me. And some of them keep in touch. Some of them will tell me, hey, how you doing nowadays? And it's very fun to share with them that I have dedicated my life to the service of the church. But I think it's their prayers for me that has really led me along from my first experience of World Youth Day back many years ago. So now, leaders, you're not exempt from this. So the last part here is really for you, looking inward. I want to ask you for a moment, because you were on this pilgrimage too, whether you did it internationally or stateside. You were a pilgrim too. You were a pilgrim leader, but you were still on the journey. So I would like you to reflect for a moment. How has God transformed you? How have you been challenged by this World Youth Day? Maybe how have you been blessed or affirmed in your work? Who are those around you who need you? And I'm talking about people who in your offices, in your families, your everyday life, who is in need of your mercy. Who is that? And what's the next great journey for you? Many of you took leaders or took young people to World Youth Day, but you're called to then journey with a whole group of new people. What is that next great journey for you? It's helpful for you as leaders to also look inward. I know that many of you probably came on this webinar hoping for tips of what to do with your young people, and I hope you get some, and we'll share some of the resources in a moment. But I just offer you a chance, and I want you to look inward as well. I want you to know that you're part of this experience, you're part of the journey, and that if you don't tend your own soul, it will be very difficult for you to tend the souls of those in your care. So please take time and do that. I kind of ask you, how perhaps can our team help you? Do you have a peer community? There are some online communities through Facebook or Twitter that I know people are part of in church ministry. Do you have a peer community that is digital? Do you have a live peer community within your own? Do you have a support network? How are you being formed? When you continue this journey, how are you forming yourself personally, spiritually, intellectually, or pastorally? Have you taken a moment to look at the readings from World Youth Day, the Holy Father's message, and applied it to your life? I just wrote a blog for the World Youth Day blog that we're continuing to run through the Catholic Apostolate Center. I had to take a few moments to reflect on those words and how they applied to me, because I can't just point to others and say, oh, it's nice that the young people, but how have you and I also been impacted and formed through this World Youth Day? And what more do you need? And to think really seriously about accompanying pilgrims down the mountain. Now, I'm going to give you a few things that you can certainly use. I talked before about some of the resources. We actually have four leader guides, these three here in English, and then there's one in Spanish as well. In these guides, there's some time for you to reflect on you as a leader. So I certainly hope you do that. But there's also some tools on how to plan some post-World Youth Day gatherings. So, I know many of you are busy. I know many of you have got 1,001 things. Being on this webinar is probably the 1,001th thing you probably didn't need to be doing. But so we wanted to make it a little easier on you, and so we've kind of given you a template. So if your creative juices are spent for the year, if you're ready to just coast into Christmas, I encourage you to look at these resources. These resources here are, you can use them for a diocese. You can also adapt them for parishes. In fact, they were designed so that they could be parish, diocese, apostolate. You can use them for any setting. You may have to adjust the language in the books, but for the most part, all of the stuff that's in there is adaptable to any size group. It's available electronically, so if you need to send it to your parish leaders, if you need to send it to group leaders that that maybe you took care of other group leaders, if you need something, you can do this all electronically. They're in ebook format, thanks to the Catholic Apostolate Center, and they're in a PDF format. And if you want to get them if you want a print copy, just contact our office, and we'll send you out a print copy as well. You just got to pay for the printing and shipping. But I'm happy to make sure that you get copies of these books for yourself if you need them. But in it, you'll find some great things that you can pass on for your people. There's some, and this, by the way, this website, we do know that this website URL is actually just expired a couple of days ago. So Jonathan will give you the new link. The page hasn't expired, but that particular URL has. So he'll share with you where to find these resources. But thanks to the Catholic Apostolate Center, we've got some great things. If you were wondering, where do I get the Pope's homilies and speeches? It's on this website from World Youth Day. The resource manuals are there. The blog reflections, I spoke about the blog. In the spirit of making sure that World Youth Day doesn't end as an event, we've continued posting the weekly blog every week since World Youth Day. We're gonna keep it going through the end of this month, but we wanted to have this modeling for you that every week, and so you can continue to use those blogs and print them off or forward them to people or link them on your site as well for your pilgrims. There's connections to Catholic formation and spirituality through the larger Catholic Apostolate Center website, and you can find a lot of things on different aspects of Catholic spirituality. So if World Youth Day inspired this in your pilgrims, you can point them to some of that. And if they're looking to be a leader in their community, there's also some great leader resources on this website. And then we have some bishop and alumni videos. We were very thrilled that just today, the former bishop of Juneau, Alaska, Bishop Ed Burns, was just transferred to the Diocese of Dallas to be the Bishop of Dallas. So for those who didn't know, there's some news for you. But he was one of our bishops who accompanied us on some of these videos, and you'll find a couple of videos on the page, which he was the MC for the videos. Did a wonderful job. There is a video series which we produced before World Youth Day, but in particular there's that last one, Bringing World Youth Day Home, which I would encourage you to use and to keep sharing, because it's a short video. It's with me, so if you like the way I'm speaking about this, you'll hear some of the same things there. If you don't like it, well, I'm sorry. But this particular video is a way to unpack what comes next. It's for the pilgrims themselves. The American Bible Society collaborated on creating a mobile application called Pilgrimage, and these are digital spiritual pilgrimages on the go, and they're free. They're 3 or 4 day pilgrimages you can take through the app, so you can do a digital pilgrimage with them. I certainly encourage you to look that up. There's a link on our website how to get access to Pilgrimage and to download that on your phone. But if you haven't done it yet, it's a nice little reminder for those pilgrims as they continue going on. Thank you for putting the link there. I encourage you to connect your young people to some of the big things that are happening. If your diocese is going to be part of the Convocation of Catholic Leaders next year, we encourage you to consider taking consider one of your World Youth Day alumni who's a leader in their faith as one of the emerging leaders your diocese can possibly take. In the Encuentro process, which is going to be happening over the next 4 years, young people are certainly a part of that. So encourage your young people to participate in the 5th Encuentro process. And again, there's more information on that online, but if you are at all connected to those particular events, connecting our young people to that. And then finally, in terms of what to connect people to on a broad sense, is this, we're having a national conversation to mobilize pastoral ministry with young Catholics. The Bishops' Conference, the National Federation for Catholic Youth Ministry, La Red, which is the Hispanic Youth and Young Adult Ministry Network, the Young Adult Ministry Network are all gathering together to talk about, to have a dialogue with the young church. And this will probably play in a little bit with what we're going to be doing to prepare for the Synod as well. But if you hear about this in your local community, this is a great way to plug in your World Youth Day alumni. So these 3 things, the convocation, the Encuentro, and this national dialogue are 3 ways on a national level to connect your young people. So all that said, there's a lot of things that are going on, and I have said perhaps more than you probably wanted to know, but hopefully it's a way for you to think about, what do we do with young people afterwards? How do we help them look back? How do we help them look around? And how do we help them look forward? So hopefully this has been helpful for you in how to frame what you're going to be doing next for your young people. And again, remember, you are still their guide. So I hope that you will continue to take on that mantle that you wonderfully did. But I'm going to pause now. If you have any questions, I haven't been watching the chat, so perhaps if there have been questions that have come through, or if there's any new questions or comments, or even your own ideas. Perhaps you have an idea that you've done something with your pilgrims after World Youth Day. If you want to share that, this would be a great time to do that.
Paul, one question that Nina had asked a while back was if there was a audio CD previously, or somewhere that they could get the audio music from World Youth Day, to be able to revisit some of the songs and reflect on the music from World Youth Day in Krakow.
You know, that's a very good question. I think there is. I'm marking it down as a reminder for me. If we find that, we'll link that on our website. I do know that the Mercy Center in Krakow, for those who went to the English language site, if you attended that, I do believe they made a CD of some of the music that was at that site. I do know that the song, the World Youth Day song, is available online. I think through iTunes you can probably get it. I also know that on our website we have a link to the English version of Blessed Are the Merciful, which was the official World Youth Day theme song. So you can find it on our site. They might have some stuff on iTunes or through Amazon, but the other place is Krakow2016.com. Again, if they have a video, if they have audio recordings, that's where to find it. But if I'll do my own digging to see if I can find something. But you know, music is a good way, because music, of course, it stirs the soul. So if we're trying to help our young people move forward by looking back, is, you know, finding what music stirred their soul during World Youth Day, and to use that as a catalyst to get them to start thinking of, what can I do going forward? So yes, music is a great thing, and don't just listen to it because it's good music, but also listen to it because it might spur on the next phase.
If anyone else has any questions or comments they'd like to share, and if you'd like to speak, there is a microphone button next to yourselves. Father Paul asks, has anyone done a walking pilgrimage stateside in connection with World Youth Day?
I believe there were elements of walking pilgrimages in some of the stateside. For instance, I know in San Antonio, and for those, if you're from San Antonio and you're on the call, you can certainly correct me on this, but I believe that between some of the missions in San Antonio, they did a walking pilgrimage as part of their stateside experience. I also, at Krakow in the capital, it was raining, and I know that there was, I think that there was supposed to be a walking pilgrimage from the John Paul II shrine to the Basilica, but I believe it rained, so therefore they had to cancel that particular element. But I know that that was an element that was originally part of that. And Jonathan, you were there, so you might know.
Yes, I was at that one. They had to modify that one due to the rain. They had to put it in the national shrine. Michael Horace says, my diocese has done local large event walking pilgrimage, but it was not connected with World Youth Day from Portland.
Yeah, and I've heard some dioceses, like for instance on Holy Thursday, there are some dioceses. I know the Archdiocese of Seattle does a walking pilgrimage to several churches on in the evening of Holy Thursday with the bishop. So that's another thing. So it may not be necessarily on World Youth Day, but there are other models out there. Certainly contact the Archdiocese of Seattle of what they do on Holy Thursday evening with the Archbishop there.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I will say that if anyone has any further questions, you can email us at wyd@usccb.org. That's our direct email for World Youth Day questions. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to respond to those offline as well. We're here to help there. Thank you, Jonathan. So what I'll do is I'll close us with a prayer, and then if you know, again, if you have further questions, feel free to email me. So let's just pause for a moment. All-powerful God, you always show mercy towards those who love you and are never far away from those who seek you. Remain with your servants as they continue to make this holy pilgrimage and guide their way in accord with your will. Shelter them with your protection by day and give them the light of your grace by night. And as their companion on the journey, bring them safely home once again. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all. And Jonathan, I pass that on to you. Again, I want to thank the Catholic Apostolate Center for their support. I also have I have a really short announcement to make that I'd like to. So the USCCB, one of the things that the USCCB does is we want to continue to help people. How do we continue on? And we have coming up in January is right around the 9 Days for Life. related to the Roe v. Wade anniversary. So from January 21st through the 29th, the USCCB is hosting its 9 Days for Life pilgrimage that they do online through their website. You can get updates on that. So if you go 9daysforlife.com, that's the number 9daysforlife.com. It's an opportunity for you to pilgrimage beyond the experience of World Youth Day, and it's coming up on a very timely moment in January in solidarity with the March for Life. So I wanted to share that with you as just a brief way, just a very practical way that you can continue journeying with your young people. All right, that's the announcement I had. It was church, so there was an announcement. And I just want to, again, thank Catholic Apostolate Center for hosting me. And Jonathan, I hand it off to you. God bless.
Yep. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for all that you've done for this, for all the things we'll do today. And with that, I just want to make one other announcement that this recording will be available online shortly thereafter on YouTube for free to share. So if you or anyone else you know wants to view this video, please feel free to share it. And with that, have a good day.